All right, let's get into this. We've got these excerpts here from John Kennedy Toole's A Confederacy of Dunces.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
And our plan is really to just dive deep into these specific pages you've given us. We want to pull out what they tell us about this character, Ignatius J. Reilly, and, the world he seems to be fighting against.
Mm-hmm.
Because right from the start, the description paints a picture, doesn't it? He's an intellectual. He's got this whole ideology.
Yeah, but one whose body seems totally connected to his philosophy, like his physical problems are tied to his view of the world.
Exactly. And he's basically declared war on, well, modern times, it seems like.
And that initial description, it's really something. You get this image, gargantuan bloats, right? But then he's compared to Aquinas.
But gone to pot.
Exactly, gone to pot. And the detail about his pyloric valve reacting to a lack of proper geometry and theology, that's not just like a weird medical thing.
No, it's presented as his philosophy made physical. His gut literally reacts to the state of the world as he sees it.
It tells you immediately that for Ignatius, his internal world and the external one are just completely tangled up.
And these first scenes we see in the excerpts, they throw him right into conflict with that outside world. I mean, think about that whole mess outside the department store.
Oh, yeah. Total chaos.
You've got Ignatius, his mother, this old guy, the policeman. It's like everything he hates rolled into one incident.
Definitely. And the old man from the Golden Age Club, he's shouting about the Constitution, calling the cops communists.
Right. And Mrs. Reilly, she's trying to handle it, but she's all over the place. 1 second, he's probably somebody's grandpa. The next, she's screaming at the cop, "Get that old man out of here." Convinced everyone's going to get their throats cut.
Yeah, that cut open from ear to ear line is pretty dramatic.
And Ignatius, in the middle of all this potential arrest and public screaming, what's his main complaint?
My nerves are totally frayed.
Exactly. Not about the law, not about the old man, just how he feels. It shows you right away. Everything's filtered through him.
Which leads almost immediately in these pages to the next disaster, the car crash.
Mrs. Reilly hitting that building.
Yep. And his reaction, again, it tells you everything.
Not, are we okay, but you have just ruined my stomach.
Yeah, his stomach first, then the car.
Need a new headlight on this side. It's just so consistent. Any external problem is immediately about its impact on Ignatius.
And he doesn't just see these as like random bad luck.
No, he brings in the philosophy.
Right. He immediately frames the near arrest, the accident, through Boethius, the road of fortune.
The wheel of fortune. He thinks it's spinning downwards fast, a bad cycle.
And he's worried his philosophy won't save him, Unlike Boethius in his cell, it shows his intellectualism is also tied up with his fear.
So the world's messing with him, Fortuna's wheel is turning, and the next awful thing it throws at him is...
he has to get a job.
Yep. Mrs. Reilly lays down the law. You gonna go out and get you a job? And he suspects Patrolman Mancuso is behind it.
Which seems plausible from what we read here. And his reaction to work. It's not just annoyance.
No, it's like a violation of his very being. A dreadful cycle. A perversion. It interferes with his real work.
Which is writing, thinking, complaining.
Probably all the above.
Yeah.
And his first attempts at job searching are just absurd.
Oh, the newspaper route idea is brilliant.
His mother has to drive him.
Yeah. While he throws the papers out the window because, as she says, a big man like you can't pedal around on no bike.
It's peak Ignatius logic. Find a way to technically comply while avoiding any actual effort or, God forbid, interaction.
It just shows how everything gets warped through his own needs and viewpoint. Which brings us, inevitably, to Levy Pants.
The ad. Clerical work. 25, 35 years old.
And his immediate thought? Sounds just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah, like he's already hit rock bottom in the job market.
Yeah, sure.
Sets the scene perfectly for what happens there.
And the Levy Pants office itself, it becomes this sort of bureaucratic battlefield for him, doesn't it?
That's totally. The description's great. You've got Mr. Gonzalez, the loyal manager, his routine.
The atmosphere with the rats and the foghorns, it sounds kind of dismal.
And Ignatius walks in, and his first reaction is physical again.
Yeah.
This will never do. I feel quite uncomfortable.
Because it lacks geometry, presumably. It's attacking his senses right away.
So how does he cope? He starts his journal.
Ah, yes, the journal of a working boy. His attempt to sort of narrate and control the experience, right?
Yeah, document his genius work-saving methods.
Like showing up an hour late.
Exactly. And hinting at some secret revolutionary filing system he's developing. It's all about making this mundane job fit his let's say, inflated self-image.
And his description of the office, it's not just a workplace. It's like a symbol of everything wrong. The papers are decaying fire hazards.
The files are tenements for assorted vermin.
Mr. Levy, the owner, is casual and unconcerned. Miss Trixie, the other clerk, seems sort of wise through sheer apathy.
The damara del comercio, he calls her.
Right, and Gonzalez is just a buffoon, an obstacle. His internal commentary is just brutal, even about this little office job.
And then we get that physical comedy moment again. Miss Trixie steps on his hand.
After he falls off the stool, yeah. And his reaction is so over the top. Crushed bones, he'll never be able to use it again.
It's another example of a minor indignity becoming this massive physical and emotional crisis for him.
He really weaponizes his body in a way.
Definitely. And his attempt to, quote, improve the office space. Classic.
Oh, the sign? Department of Research and Reference?
I.J. Reilly, custodian, with the fleur-de-lis carefully placed over Miss Trixie's sneaker print.
And the streamers.
Yeah.
And the bean vines growing in the file cabinets.
It's just this bizarre, desperate attempt to impose his own weird sense of order and aesthetics onto this place he hates.
Then he takes his crusade to the factory floor.
And applies his grand social critique lens.
Right. It's the original sweatshop. It's mechanized Negro slavery. He's pulling out references to an Uncle Tom's Cabin, Metropolis.
And naturally his valve responds, "My intense and deeply felt convictions concerning social injustice were aroused."
My valve threw in a hearty response. It's almost Pavlovian at this point.
But you also see his particular biases here too, don't you? That cynical comment about the progress from picking cotton to tailoring it.
Yeah, his social justice seems filtered through a very specific, maybe not entirely enlightened viewpoint.
Which leads him to try and organize the workers.
Which, of course, goes completely sideways.
He's got his banner made from his dirty sheet, no less.
Crusade for Moorish dignity and forward in crayon. He thinks it's this profound ritual.
He talks about geometry and how the banner alone gives form and credence.
Meanwhile, the workers are like, how come we got to take that old sheet with us?
Exactly. The total disconnect between his abstract ideas and their reality.
And then it just descends into chaos. Someone half-heartedly throws a bicycle chain.
And Ignatius is most outraged that his bean plants get knocked over.
Priorities, right? It just shows how his grand plans completely fall apart when they hit the real world.
And this whole Levy pants thing blows up when Mr. Levy himself gets involved.
Yeah.
He's already stressed about some libel suit.
The Abelman case, yeah. And he figures out Reilly's mixed up in it somehow.
Levy seems like this guy just drowning in problems of the business, his family. And he ends up going to Ignatius's house.
Which must have been a sight. The squalor, Mrs. Reilly getting defensive.
And Ignatius, all bandaged up, trying to present his journal entries as proof of his dedication.
Claiming he loved Levy pants even more than life itself. It's absurd.
And Levy's reaction just calls him a cook, which is probably how most people see him.
Seems fair, based on these excerpts. So Levy pants ends in disaster. But his adventures in the working world aren't over.
Nope. Next stop. Paradise vendors selling hot dogs.
And that setup sounds just as grim. The garage office, the fumes of hot dog, mustard, lubricant.
And Clyde, the owner, scarred, wizened.
And the hot dogs themselves, rubber, cereal, tripe. Who knows? It just adds to this picture of kind of grubby, low-rent commerce he's forced into.
Plus the costume, the pirate getup.
Oh, God, yeah. The red scarf, the earring, the plastic cutlass. A nod to New Orleans folklore.
It's just another layer of humiliation visually.
Which somehow leads to that weird duel with Clyde.
Clyde's got a rusty fork. Ignatius has his plastic sword.
And Ignatius, being Ignatius, thinks Clyde is trying to kill him. Saved by falling down, thanks to Fortuna again. His paranoia is always right there.
So he takes this pirate persona out into the quarter. Attracts stares, naturally, but no customers.
And immediately his body complains, his feet hurt, his tissues were crying for rest.
His internal monologue gets really paranoid here, too. He feels exposed like a bitch in heat, attracting cops and sanitation guys like a toothsome steak.
Yeah, it's very vivid, his sense of being targeted and vulnerable, even while acting outrageously.
And then he runs into George, the kid who's staking him out.
And what does Ignatius do? He bullies him into pushing the cart.
Yep. Drops that vague thread about his friend on the police force. Probably Mancuso.
And instantly labels George a gutter snipe and starts planning how to blackmail him. It shows that his intellectual snobbery has a nasty manipulative side, too.
He can't even go to the movies normally. Takes the pirate costume in.
Watches the film and decides it's smut, garbage, the heroine's a Chinese communist agent.
Rattles his cutlass, gets into a fight with the usherette. He just can't not cause a scene. His worldview has to erupt constantly.
Yeah. Now, we also get introduced, mostly through letters here, to Myrna Minkoff.
Right, his intellectual sparring partner, sort of.
Yeah, the activist. Doing lions, wait-ins, writing lectures like The Pyloric Valve as a Weapon Against Reactionaries.
Which is amazing.
Mm.
But crucially, she sees his problems differently, right? More psychologically.
Totally. She talks about his psychotic phase, says he needs group therapy. She actually seems concerned about him, wants him to engage with the world.
But Ignatius just dismisses her activism as boring, passive. He misunderstands her concern completely.
And his own attempts at political action or organizing are, well, what you'd expect.
Vague ideas about a peace party or divine right party, or maybe a sodomite business, whatever that means.
And it leads to that disastrous party at Dorian Green's place.
Oh, man. Ignatius is immediately offended by the whole scene, calls it an egregious offense against taste and decency.
It's this decadent, sort of artsy gathering, and it just clashes violently with his own rigid, peculiar morality.
And then Timmy falls off the chandelier.
Right, and Ignatius is more upset about the lack of decorum than the injury.
And gets thrown out by 3 dubious girls, leaving him with, yes, another debacle on his itching hands.
He just can't seem to make anything work, can he?
We also loop back to the night of joy, Lana Lee's bar. Place he already hates, got worst service before.
And he runs into Jones, the porter. Jones has some great lines, doesn't he? About his job, about race, about Darlene's bird act.
Yeah, Jones offers this grounded, cynical perspective on the same world Ignatius rails against. Ignatius sees Darlene's act, thinks it stinks, calls her a streetwalker.
Lana Lee just shrugs it off, focused on business.
And even here, Ignatius tries to connect intellectually, wanting to discuss Boethius with the stripper.
It just shows how out of touch he is, how his intellectualism is always misplaced, never actually connecting him to people.
And we need to talk about Mrs. Reilly, too.
Yeah.
She's a huge presence in these excerpts.
Absolutely. Her relationship with Santa Battaglia, the bowling, her own physical pains.
Yeah, her feet, her arthritis.
Yeah.
Which she blames on carrying Ignatius when he was young.
She's blunt. She's constantly upset by Ignatius, worried about Mancuso, and eventually she just snaps.
Decides to get him declared temporary insane.
And that line she delivers. You learned everything, Ignatius, except how to be a human being.
Yeah, that hits hard. It feels like maybe the most accurate assessment of him in all these pages.
And Patrolman Mancuso, he's another interesting figure. Just trying to do his job, but the job is absurd.
His sergeant gives him these ridiculous assignments, catch random people, wear stupid costumes.
He's got that cough, maybe pneumonia. The old guy calls him a dirty communist. He tries to read The Consolation of Philosophy.
And George hits him with the book. Poor guy.
He's just this well-meaning pawn caught in a system that makes no sense, constantly frustrated.
And all these other characters, Santa, Jones, Lana, the Levies, Myrna, they all offer these outside views of Ignatius.
And it's rarely flattering, is it?
No. He's a fat cat, a green cap freak, a cook, mad, revolting beast.
Charles Lawton in drag, Bette Davis with indigestion. The descriptions get pretty wild.
They all see him as this bizarre, disruptive force. Someone totally unable to fit in or be understood. He just creates conflict and confusion everywhere.
So if you step back and look at the journey in these excerpts, you have this character, Ignatius, with huge ideas, huge ego.
Positioning himself against basically everything modern. Work, culture, politics that aren't his politics.
And yet he fails constantly. His body reacts, his plans collapse. He tries to impose his will, his view, but it always ends in absurdity and failure.
Which brings us right to the end of these passages. Myrna shows up.
Sees him sinking fast, wants to rescue him.
And even the escape attempt is chaotic. Myrna sees Mrs. Reilly's pamphlets, tries to record the scene like Eliza crossing the ice.
The absurdity just follows him. Their departure is rushed. Myrna's exhausted. Ignatius is anxious, even while escaping.
It suggests that just changing his location won't fix his fundamental conflict with, well, everything.
It really leaves you with that question about the Wheel of Fortune, doesn't it? He dreads it. He analyzes it.
But is he ever actually off it? Or is he just stuck in this ridiculous loop he partly creates himself? Maybe his mom's solution, temporary insane, is the only logical outcome presented here.
It's a really provocative way to leave it based on these pages.
It is. These excerpts alone give you such a rich, funny, and frankly disturbing portrait of Ignatius J. Reilly.
They really do. It's this incredible satirical look at what happens when someone's internal reality just fundamentally clashes with the outside world, feeling like you belong in another time.
So thinking about just what we've read here, What do you make of a character who builds his whole identity on rejecting the present? And what does his, let's call it a journey in these pages, tell you about that struggle we all sometimes feel, trying to find our place when the world feels alien? It definitely gives you something to chew on.